What's up, YouTube? This is Ultimate Shield 340 back at again with another Destiny 2 video. Today I wanted to open up the floor for discussion about the Stasis subclass. I have been testing builds and doing, looking at the fragments, trying out new things, and trying to adapt the Stasis subclass to my own personal preference. Although the build that you see here is kind of what I'm using, it's not my final build, but that's not really what's important here. The importance is to open up the floor for discussion about the Stasis subclass and why, in my personal opinion, I believe that the Stasis subclass needs a slight rework. And without further ado, I'll explain to you why. So, with the Lightfall campaign coming out, there is the new subclass Strand that has now come out. Many of you know what Strand is, what it does, all the things. It's a great subclass. And before I continue, I just want to make sure that you know I don't have anything against Stasis or Strand, but this is just purely my opinion, and I wanted to sort of compare the two classes together because I think they're very similar. In my guild, I guess clan in game, as well as my fellow YouTuber by the name of Sloth Moods, he made a very interesting comment where he said he believes Strand was the sort of the answer to Stasis, and I agree with that. Strand, I'm sorry, Strand does everything that Stasis does, but it does it a lot better. And, for instance, being able to shackle a lot of or suspend, I should say, using your class ability. It doesn't have to build slow stacks, and once you hit them with the ability, they're suspended, which will take care of most of the champions in the game. The Woven Mail, I believe, I can't remember exactly what the resistance is, but whenever you pick up Woven Mail, it doesn't have any precursors to it, like standing next to a Tangle or anything to get the benefit once you get the Orb of Power, or if you have the Woven Mail buff, you are instantly given the Resilience buff, and you can keep it up and running every time, if you like have a fragment like this where you can pick up an Orb of Power, and you can just continue to have Woven Mail over and over, and it doesn't require that you stand next to, like, say, a crystal or anything, or a frozen target like Stasis. The problem with the resistance on Stasis here, I can't remember what the name of the um, fragment is off the top of my head. This one, Whisper Chains, is that you have to be standing next to a frozen or a stasis crystal in order for you to get the benefit of this. Now, while in many stasis builds, clearly you're going to be freezing a lot of people. The problem is that, like, let's just say if you are in a room full of, red bar enemies, you are going to, we'll say, freeze an area, and you're going to start killing enemies to shatter them for AoE damage and ad clear. Problem is that as you are killing these ads, you are in effect ruining you know working against the buff that this is going to provide. Once you have no more frozen targets to destroy, then this falls off and it becomes useless to you, as opposed to Woven Mail, where clearly the buff will run out after 10 seconds, but there's no precursor to it. You just pick up the Orb of Power, you have the buff for 10 seconds, regardless of whatever else happens. I mean, obviously, if you die, you won't get the buff, but you get the point I'm trying to make here. Um, Not to mention that if you freeze a boss, once you do enough damage, it will shatter, and then again, you won't be able to take advantage of this in the event that it's just you and your fire team and the enemy. Now, granted, yes, you get throw out crystal shards and oh, I'm sorry, glacier grenades. Yes, you can for sure to maybe not destroy one crystal while you go ahead and take advantage of the buff. But then who goes to say that your teammates won't shoot it? What if you accidentally shoot it, or destroy it? Say if you have like a sword or something, you're going to destroy the crystal with your wide range of abilities, and so again you're going to lose that here. And so one thing I will say, and maybe this is going to be a very hot take, even though I think that overall Strand is first and foremost much easier to use for CC rather than Stasis, because especially with the Titan subclass, you can just go ahead and press the button one time, you get the suspend, Second thing as well, for the shackle grenades, you just hit somebody with the ability, you get it, as opposed to say having to build slow stacks. And even if you like, say if you have like the cold snap grenade, which is great, I think all the grenades are great and they have their place. They still, you can walk out of the dusk filled grenades. You can, miss the cold snap grenade all overall. The seeker could just simply fall short right before it reaches the enemy. And of course, I already explained to you the problem with the glacier grenades, as opposed to Strand. Again, the only downside to the Strand abilities is that if you miss, which could be easily said about any other Stasis subclass issue that we have here. So this is my proposal. Um, these are just a few of the things that I, have compared in my personal testing of Stasis compared to Strand, and I do have a few suggestions. First and foremost, the Whisper chains. I feel as if it should be reworked to do similar to the Strand subclass, where once you pick up an orb of power, you automatically get the resistance. I don't understand. I don't think that that would be a hard fix. And not to mention that, you don't even have to necessarily change the resistance, but I think that it should function similarly. Or you can actually change this fragment completely to do something different, that would maybe supplement the playstyle of all the classes. Where one of the biggest issues for me, specifically for the Titan subclass, is that I wanted to create a build that got away from shattering stasis crystals, because in order for you to take full advantage of the Stasis subclass as the Titan subclass, this is again just my personal opinion, you are going to have to take Tectonic to harvest in order for you to get those Stasis crystals, or Stasis shards, I'm sorry. And then they will heal you and provide an overshield, and things of that nature. So I think that if we don't want to change maybe this particular Whisper change into something that's similar, of woven mail and Strand, then I think maybe we could rework not necessarily this one, but any of the other, maybe lesser used Strand or Stasis subclass fragments, in order to utilize something that it would say, hey, um, you're going to be able to create, shards without having to rely on crystals. So instead of saying, hey, you're going to have to shatter, stasis shards, you can just, create stasis shards upon shattering a frozen enemy, but then also just disable it for like tectonic harvest instead. Like, say if you pick it up, like those two things don't overlap, or it's even built into the system already, where say if you create like a frozen lance, it goes on cooldown, and it would probably work the same way in this particular aspect, even if you didn't want to change both things. So that's just a thought for you to, mull over as we go over this. But that's just my thoughts, a few thoughts about Stasis and Strand. I do think that, even with the new season coming out and Stasis getting an update, I think they're going to change it where the elemental shards, it's going to give elemental wells, I believe. I can't remember exactly what it says off the top of my head, but essentially you're going to be able to create those elemental wells off of shatters, I believe. And so, from what I heard from previously, it um, it has been a big help for the Stasis subclass. And I think that if we do it that way, that's fine. But I still think that even with that change, Stasis is not going to be still as up to par as Strand is. And then, one other thing I wanted to mention before I forgot, as far as Stasis is concerned, I also think it should be reworked where you can just go buy the some sort of currency on Europa, and then you can just outright buy these fragments, because as it stands right now, uh, going into, not only do you have to beat the Beyond Light DLC, and of course you have to buy it just like you would have to do Lightfall in order to get Strand. The problem is that it's you can only unlock two fragments per week, and you also have to be able to unlock it using the um, quest abilities that you have to pick up from the stranger. once I believe it's like you can only do it once per week, or 2 quests per week from the stranger. And some of these are actually rather, kind of hard to do. I got lucky and I kind of got an easy one, but this dusk silvers one, slivers I should say, is actually kind of a pain. You have to absolutely positively use a pulse rifle in order to get the dusk silvers, and it's not even guaranteed. You can actually run this, many times and not get the dusk slivers, especially, and it unfortunately Destiny does not do a good job of explaining things more clearly. So even if you were running the wrong weapon, you'll never get the dusk slivers like you were supposed to. Um, because you're not using the pulse rifle as it says here. It just says rifle, which could mean anything, and it just so happened that I was lucky, or at least had enough foresight to look it up on the internet to see what exactly did that mean. And even when you are using the correct weapon, it like drops at a very low rate. So it's like even when you go through the trouble of unlocking these subclasses, the stasis subclass, you have to also then get the quest in order to unlock the fragments. And then even when you do that, even you even have to go through a lot of things to even unlock the aspects as well. So I think if they redid it where stasis is like Strand, where you just earn currency on Europa and then just buy it outright from the Exo Stranger, I think that would be a most welcome change. And in fact, they even already have it in the game where I believe it's a currency that you get even on Europa. Here it is, the Hills Way Peace, I believe is what it is, where you just will earn it from doing certain things in the game. Like once you progress their storyline enough, you'll start getting this currency. I believe, I think it's this currency, but it's some kind of currency. You'll start dropping that, and I don't understand why we can't just use that to buy the fragments outright like you can Strand. In fact, here's some Strand medallions that I picked up. Since I bought all the Strand fragments and things like that, I don't need these anymore, although I can trade these in, I think, somewhere, and maybe use this in some way. But that's about it. That's my thoughts and ideas about Stasis and Strand as of right now. I know it's not like a big video at this moment, but I wanted to go ahead and let you all know what my thoughts were at this moment while I continue to try and push out content in between, working and looking after baby girl and all that. But, just a few thoughts. Um, Otherwise, this is Ultimate Shield 340 signing off, and I'll see you in Destiny 2. Peace.